So, if I could have your attention, please. They're both on. They're both on. I think if I could have your attention, please. Hello? Hey. Aaron? Oh, good. Aaron, thank you. Yeah, we need a little more volume here. So, welcome. I am actually making an announcement. If you are a member of the House, you need to take your seat so that we can determine how many extra seats might be available for our guests. So we're not quite ready. You can go back to that chaotic din, and we'll be starting in maybe about 3 minutes, okay? So everybody settle in, begin to get certainly reserve your seats, and we're gonna allow others to find a seat as well. So if you see a seat of a House member that is not occupied, it's up for grabs at this point. So go for them. That includes people in the galleries who would like to get closer. So go ahead, it's your chance.
You can drink it, but this is the glass I used earlier. Just so you know. Okay, you totally love that. I love that. Yeah. So just,
Okay, I think we're ready to roll. Welcome. Welcome to the People's House, to the House Chamber, to the heart of this great State House on another incredibly important historic occasion. And it is a very emotional moment for me and anyone who loves this building to be doing what we're doing this afternoon. Adding to the portrait collection of this wonderful building. And I want to start by invoking Lavinia Dorsey Bright's name among the rookie members elected in 1988 to serve in the House of Representatives. That was captured by a Times Argus photographer like Jeb. Jeb was too young to cover that, but the three rookie women were captured at the desks right off the well of this chamber. And I saw this photograph very recently. It was sent by one of my staff who had found it online. And there's a very casual mention that Lavinia Bright was the first African-American woman elected to this body. It was so casual that it did remind me that in 1988, we were not in the same head that we're in 2026. And I think some of our speakers today are going to focus on that because that really is why this moment is so important in this moment. In other words, history is always changing because history is not fact, as Jill Lepore, one of my favorite historians, will be the first to point out. History is not what actually happened. History is simply what somebody says happened. And as soon as we go there, we know we're in a little bit of trouble in terms of determining what truth actually is. And yet, the study of history is always toward attempting to discern the truth. Let us never forget that. Never. Because it is the foundation of what our democracy is built upon. We must be able to accept truth from journalism and accept truth from historians, because they are the people who are attempting to know the truth and to tell it to us. And Lavinia, I believe, in checking with Bill, her son, did not think that her election to this body was a big deal. Because like me, and maybe like you, if you were around in the 80s, maybe we thought we had accomplished a lot more than we did when it came to race relations in the United States. I grew up during the Civil Rights Movement, and I guess I thought we had gone so far that we would begin to elect people like Lavinia Bright regularly to this body as available. And we wouldn't make a big deal about it. Well, here we are in 2026, and I think we can all agree that she is looking down on us right now, and she is saying, oh yeah, you are finally doing what we need to do in this building today. And 50 years from now, who knows how people will be behaving toward one another, but I'm guessing we will have learned this lesson over and over again, as we already have. So with that in mind, we have lined up some incredible speakers, not the least of which is the one I'm about to introduce. Susanna Davis came to Vermont quite a few years ago now. She's been our executive director of racial equity for the state of Vermont, working directly out of the governor's office. And we believed she'd be the perfect person to kick off this conversation that we're going to have today about the significance of this moment in the context of our time. Susanna Davis.
Buenas tardes. It feels so good when you say it back. Did you know that Election Day of 1988 was the day that I was born? And I think about, at my advanced age, I think about what little I have lived and done and seen in the world. And despite having been here in this state and in this role for going on 7 years almost, there's still so much that I don't know, so much that I haven't seen and learned. And yet I come here on a regular basis and I walk these halls, chipper as a bird, and people greet me and they smile pleasantly, and that's a normal pattern for me. Because people like Lavinia Bright walked so that people like me could run in this State House. And here's the thing about being the first. You don't mind being the first. You don't love being the only, but you pray not to be the last. And we live in a place and in a time where many folks would have us be the last. I think we find ourselves in an era of great paradox in this country, where certain scores of people insist on preserving history for some perhaps less deserving historical figures, and yet simultaneously disinterested in preserving the kind of history we're here to celebrate today. I once read something that said, "My history is an elective, while yours is the core curriculum." And that's important. Like the curator said, oftentimes history is what someone official or authoritative says it is. But here's the part that nobody likes to tell you. I'm going to tell you because I think you're great. We can also speak authoritatively about what is and about what was. And it's so critical that we do so. One of the things that I enjoy most about Vermont and the way that it selects leaders in this building is it's everyday Vermonters. Not a whole lot of career politicians. We're talking about people's friends and neighbors. And we know that the changing demographics of this state mean that in Vermont, just like in the rest of the US, the millennial and Gen Z age cohorts are the most racially and ethnically diverse in the nation's history, and that's going to continue to be so going forward, which means that as we continue to elect leaders who represent and reflect our communities, those communities are going to be more and more inclusive, more and more multifaceted. Yes, diverse, but more than that, more than just a numbers game. Because it's not just about being the first or the only or the best or the special one, but about what we do with that, what we do with those positions, and whose right and whose duty it is to tell the truth about what happens in our lives. I think sometimes about the horrible era when I was studying for a particular exam. It was the bar. And I remember one day I was so stressed out. They tell you to treat it like a full-time job. I sat in my chair at 9 o'clock. I didn't move from that chair for the full day. I was stressed. It was not a good time. And one day my father called me during the day from work, and I was so distracted. All I could think was, every minute I'm on the phone, I'm losing study time. I have to catch up on this lecture. Maybe if I play it at double speed, And he told me a joke, and I kind of half-heartedly laughed. I wasn't fully present. And then we said, okay, nice to talk to you, talk later. And then later that evening, I was done with studying, and I rewarded myself with carbohydrates, and then I reflected on my day, and I remembered the joke. I retold it to myself in my head and couldn't stop laughing. It was this. You'll have to forgive me, it's an unflattering one. There's a parrot. He lives in a pet shop window, and every day he sees a little girl walking to school, and he says, "Oh, what an ugly child. Terribly ugly, face only a mother could love." Every day he does this. Now, this child is the daughter of the richest man in the town. He owns everything and everyone, and she's having none of it. So finally, after a long time, children tease her because of it. She goes to her father and says, "Daddy, you have to do something about this. We can't have this parrot insulting me." So the man who happens to own the pet shop says to the pet shop owner, "Listen, you got to do something about this bird. I'm going to have to get rid of it if you don't." So the pet shop owner has a talk with the parrot and says, "You can't be insulting this girl like that in public." The parrot says, "Okay." So the next day, the girl confidently walks to school because she knows she's resolved the issue through personal connections. And the parrot spots her, and he says, "Hey." And she says, "What?" And he says, "You know." And I thank you for indulging me in that long journey, because what I'm trying to communicate is that regardless of what someone says authoritatively, regardless of what placards get pulled down, regardless of what curricula get changed, We know. I thank you all for being here. I thank Luvenia for her presence, for her mere existence, and for her work. And I thank you all in advance for recognizing the duty that we all have to continue and to support that work going forward. Thank you.
So alas, the governor could not be here today, but we have our lieutenant governor standing in for him. And I want to say at this point that some of the members of the House have a very tough deadline that they must meet. So I want to give them a little cover here. If you see them heading to the exits, it's not to be to offend any of our speakers, certainly, but they may have to dash to a meeting. I also want, this is the preliminary to unveiling the portrait. So that's going to happen as soon as John has his remarks. Then we move swiftly to the Bright family, who are going to talk for about 5 minutes about their mother and wife. And then we'll proceed. So here he is, His Excellency, the Lieutenant Governor of Vermont, John Rogers.
Thank you, David, and thank you, everyone, for coming. It is truly an honor and a privilege to have been invited for the unveiling of the portrait of Lavinia Bright. And on behalf of the executive branch, a very special welcome to her family. It is so wonderful to see you all here. I'm not going to talk for a long time, but because we have some politicians that are going to speak after me, and so they will take up the remainder of the time. But right now, I think it would be best in the thought of time if we proceed directly to the unveiling. That's what everybody came to see.
So the Brights are going to be on this side, and the Lieutenant Governor will be on the other side, and they're going to unveil the portrait. Dr. Bright is Lavinia's husband. Next to him is Bill Bright, the son, and then Becca Bright Pugh, the daughter. Okay, so we're going to hear first from Dr. William Bright, who came to Vermont in 1971 with his wife, Lavinia, to serve at the University of Vermont as Associate Dean of the College of Education. Dr. Bright.
This is Katie O'Brien, and Katie is my wrangler. Katie, I've known Katie since she was a kindergartner. And even though she didn't spend a lot of time in our house, physically, by body, but she did spend a lot of time in our house because she was probably one of Rebecca's 3 or 4 best friends. And we got to know her family as well. And we got to know her family through school. I have all these prepared remarks. I've already bashed them, you know. But I'm very happy to be here and for you to do this. And Lavinia was a very humble person. Those of you who knew her, there are a few here who didn't know her. Those of you who knew her knew she was humble, but she was also principled. And she was a person who set her mind to do something, and she did it. When she decided to run for the legislature, she told me. We didn't have discussion about if she was going to run. It was discussion of how she was going to run. And that was the way the whole time went in this journey that she took over these years. And she intended to be a citizen legislator, which she was. She had no intent of staying as a legislator for a long time, but I'm sure her mark has been made, and even at that time could tell that her mark had been made. Being a first was not something that was important to her. In fact, we had intended to be in Vermont 2 years. We came with a 2-year-old, a son, and while here after 2 years, I guess after 4 years, we had a daughter, and we kind of said, maybe we need to be here a while. And we found our place in South Burlington as a community, and we found a place of like souls. Not only church, there was church, but the community at large. And we found ourselves in a community that accepted us, and we didn't know there was any difference in terms of being black. As spoken earlier, that was not the case in many places in this country. But it was a little community, Country Club Estates. There was no country club, and there was no estates. But it was a conclave of probably about 60 residences. And we all just had a great time together. And there must have been 60 children that lived in the neighborhood, but not obviously not that many. But we just did very many things together and appreciated each other and contributed to the city of South Burlington and its development and to its school systems. And and out of that came lifelong friendships, which we still have today. Now let me. Many thanks to all of you who've made this possible. She would have been obviously surprised, but she would have been very humble in accepting this. That was just something, that's just the way she was. But she would have been very humbled, and thanking all of you very much. And I'll just stop there because the stories can go on, but this is not a place for stories. But thank you very much, it's appreciated.
Wow. I just want to say that in 1988, the next two speakers, the son, the daughter of Lavinia, and Dr. Bright, were freshmen in college and high school, respectively. Teenagers. And possibly Lavinia felt that she could begin her political career consequently because they were kind of launched. But we'll let them tell that story.
All right. Definitely for some of the folks sitting right here, let me just first start and say, we did it. So thank you to the Lieutenant Governor, and the Curator, and the Legislature for letting us be here today, and thank you all for being here to celebrate this with us. Before my sister and I say a few words, we're going to do a little housekeeping, say some thank yous to some folks who have been with us this whole way. It's been about 18 months. So I want to start with Cree Linthalak and the Linthalak Foundation. I don't know if Cree is here. The Ben & Jerry's Foundation and Ben & Jerry's, and in particular, Ellen Kresge and Jay Curley, who gave us key input that guided our artist search, which we clearly did a good job of. Tom Levitt, Northfield Savings Bank, Susan Evans McClure and the Vermont Arts Council, the Vermont Preservation Trust, with a special shout out to Ben Doyle, who gave us some key fundraising guidance early on in the process, Andy Barker and the Vermont Community Foundation, and Senator Patrick Leahy and his wife, Marcelle.
Also, thank you to the O'Brien family. Amazing. Katie was part of our committee. We had a committee of folks who we would meet regularly to keep the ball going in the right direction. Friends of the Vermont State House, Thaddeus Gibson and Gail Kerrigan in particular, helped us on the front end of this project with organizing and collecting donations online, snail mail. There were points where it felt like we were building the plane as we were flying it, so we appreciate all of that. Senator Martine LaRoque-Ulick, Senator Keisha Rems Hinsdale, who planted this seed for this whole project. Representative Sadia Lamont, Wanda Heading Grant, Sheila Burley, Christine Leonard, Linda Morell, and of course our state curator, David Sheets. We're all a part of our time together.
Thank you. So, as we look at the portrait, we're going to try and give you some context to the life that he alluded to when my dad was speaking. Some of you may have seen some press or whatever about her, some of the obituaries where her early life was covered. So we're not going to go that far back, but we are going to start for our purposes in the early 1960s in Detroit, Michigan, where two young people meet at Wayne State University, a graduate student, Bill, and an undergraduate, Vini, as she was known to family and friends, who was an undergraduate and an administrative assistant at the school. So by 1963, this young couple was married and starting their life together, which was an adventure marked by commitment to service. Those early years would include, most notably, a 2-year stint in the Peace Corps volunteers in the Philippines from 1965 to 1967, where Mom taught at the Philippine Normal College in Manila. The Detroit they returned to in 1967 was really a powder keg. In July of that year, what's been known as the Detroit Uprising took place and has been known as the bloodiest urban riot of that year. And while 1968 found Detroit still embroiled in the civil rights turbulence of the nation, the city also celebrated the Detroit Tigers winning the World Series and Motown rising to its musical heights. As referenced in 1969, they added their first of 2 children to the mix. And by 1971, Vini had earned her master's in education from Wayne State University. That same year, this man here, Bill, accepted a job offer in the far-flung Green Mountain state of Vermont, at the University of Vermont. Things were about to get interesting.
Now Vermont residents and careers are taking place. Mom and Dad finally settled in Country Club Estates in South Burlington, and our family was complete with the perfect addition, me. Lavinia was affectionately known within our family as the reluctant Vermonter, a title earned through many of the hurdles that she faced while settling in and getting used to being so far away from home. Chief among those challenges was the struggle to maintain her hair. Known for being meticulous about her appearance, she found it nearly impossible to source necessary products locally. So ever resourceful, she coordinated care packages to be sent from her sisters in Detroit to keep our hair care routine intact. And beyond just helping herself, she took the initiative to train a local stylist named Sue Snyder in how to maintain our hair so that we had a reliable support system in town. Though she was often described as quiet, Lavinia prioritized quality over quantity in her relationships. She chose her circle with intention. And the bonds that she forged were unbreakable. In friends like Mrs. Leonard, Mrs. Morrell, Mrs. LaRock, and Mrs. Parks, she found more than just companionship. She found a community of fellowship, shared values, and the occasional bit of shenanigans. Those experiences combined with raising a family in an environment where we were frequently the only in the room magnified her to make things better. Themes of fairness, equity, access, and opportunity were consistent through all she did here in Vermont.
So prior to her election to the Vermont State Legislature, Mom was already at work making Vermont a better place. First and foremost, she was a teacher at both Colchester and Burlington High Schools. She served as the vice president of the Black Professionals Network of Vermont, and she was a member of the Vermont State Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, among other organizations she worked for. And it was this life and these experiences that were at the foundation of my mother's intent and are what brought her to the legislature in 1988. She was driven by the idea that everyone should have a voice and everyone should have an equal opportunity to participate in our government, our schools, our economy, and our daily lives. And it didn't matter the issue, several of which she was not a subject professional in, but it didn't matter if it was land use, education, healthcare, or her work to pass the state's first Family and Parental Leave Act. She made sure that those who were most often overlooked or pushed aside were heard and their issues thoughtfully considered. And as we can tell from the photo, she did so with style, she did so with grace, and she did so with the quiet strength that cut through all the noise. She expanded what it means to be a Vermonter. She left things better than they were when she got there. And it just so happens she was an African-American woman who brought a new perspective to Vermont.
So in closing, our objective for this project was to commemorate the legacy of Representative Lavinia Dorsey Bright, the first African-American woman and woman of color to serve in the Vermont State Legislature from 1988 to 1994. By commissioning a large, high-quality artistic portrait, a true work of art. This portrait will be included in the permanent collection of the State House and will authentically reflect her essence and contributions. The work of art will serve as a timeless tribute showcasing Lavinia's strength, legacy, and inspiration for future generations. It will become a central gathering point at the Vermont State House, sparking conversation and providing a space to reflect and connect. I think we're on our way to saying mission accomplished.
We take portraits seriously in this building, a lot more seriously than we used to. In 1988, I was here. I was the curator, but I was a little distracted by a project to return the State House to the way that it looked in the middle of the 1850s when it was built. We were in the process of restoring the entire building, and we started in the governor's office, the Cedar Creek room, moved out into the vestibule, and in 1994, the last year that Lavinia Bright served here, we finally pushed into this chamber and restored it, not completing it until 1996. 2 years later. So Lavinia Bright never served in this chamber the way it looks now, but all of the original furniture, all of the original gas lights were here. They just didn't look as good as they look now. And many of the members of the House, of course, were horrified with the carpet that we brought into this chamber, which scared the daylights out of the Senate such that they kept us away from their chamber for the next 7 years. But I digress. I want you to envision this, the way this chamber was when Lavinia Bright was here. And the reason I want that is to, again, understand the time when she actually was here. A very different time, and we have certainly had a number of members of this body since, of both genders, male and female, and continue to do so. But I think this is, again, a moment for us to appreciate that the collection on the walls now needs to reflect the growing diversity of this state, and the goal is that every single Vermonter, no matter where they come from, no matter what gender, no matter what, this building belongs to them. And the institutions that it houses belong to them, and they need to be active participants in that. This is the work of our office, of the Sergeant at Arms office, of the Friends of the Vermont State House. We have a mission to connect this building with every Vermonter, and we're doing so with the largest school audience in Vermont by far. Kids pour through this building throughout the session. It's chaos on a daily basis. But we go away hoping that they understand what is going on around them on the most basic level. And those rookie women in 1988, she's sitting next to Nancy Sheltra, if any of you remember, in that photograph that I brought up earlier. I'm guessing the politics of the two women could not have been more different. But that is what is going on in this building. Everybody brings their background, their views to what's going on in the State House, and we hope that law is being made from the good ideas that people bring to the State House that will make all our lives better. Nothing less than that. So, with that in mind, we're going to hear from the artist. Ayanna Ross is from the state of Georgia. And we very intentionally sent out an RFP to all the portrait artists of Vermont and beyond. And the portrait committee selected Ayana, and I think you see that it was an excellent choice. So here she is to explain her process.
Thank you all. It's so great to be here. I'm going to be very brief, truly. I am a Georgia-based artist, but over the years, I've had the privilege of doing work and taking my practice to various states and engaging in a number of projects, and this was certainly one that was very special to me. My work centers around memory, preserving history, elevating figures, who traditionally have not been elevated even in my contemporary art practice. And oftentimes I find myself doing memorial portraits for commissions, but this was my first official portrait. So I was very, very honored and very proud to be a part of this project. I can't even remember truly how I came to receive the information about the call. I just knew when I saw it, it was something I deeply wanted to be a part of. So to that end, I want to express my gratitude to everyone that Bill and Becca mentioned before, because I don't even know the full scope of all the work that went into this project, but certainly the friends of the Vermont State House, the selection committee, the Bright family, Bill and Becca, certainly. Thank you all for extending the opportunity to me and entrusting this responsibility to me. Although I did not know the scope of everything and everyone involved, it was not lost on me that there was a tremendous amount of time and effort put into planning, fundraising, and advocating for this project. And I could only imagine that when that type of work is put in, it's hard to trust someone new to come along and uphold the urgency of the project, but I hope you all know that I too wanted to get it right from the very beginning. So in terms of process, as David mentioned, I spent probably the past, I don't know, when did our conversations begin? Almost 9 months getting to know Mrs. Bright. I have been consumed with her. I've been going through photos of her life. I've been reading articles. I've been trying to find footage, and I know exactly the photo you're talking about because I saw it too. It got so bad at one point, I had to resist the urge to get myself some wide rim glasses that were tinted. I was like, no, we cannot. It might happen, but I did resist. So unlike many of you, I didn't have the opportunity of knowing her. So it was my honor and my duty to get to know her through this process. It also helped that our lives have some parallels. I too started my career in education, so I like to think I know the heart of a teacher. I am also a proud mother and wife of some very high achieving individuals. And I am about the same age she was in her first few years as a state representative. And with that, I understand some of the challenges of having to miss family moments because you're trying to do something greater for them and for the community. I understand having to be aware of what you say and do and how it is perceived when it comes from a body that looks like this. And I understand the nuance of being a vessel of both love and care, but at the same time, not anyone's pushover. So those things were things that I reflected on as I stared into her face for so many months. So one thing that I did notice in all of the photos that I saw of her throughout her life, and I think Bill referenced this, there is a degree of grace and elegance that she's always carried. even in the photos when she was very, very young. And I tried my best to reflect that grace and that beauty and that elegance in the painting. This, of course, is a painting. It is not a photograph. And in it, I try to embed in every stroke, in the composition, in every decision, some degree of meaning and symbolism. You may notice the flowers. There are the flowers that she is so deserving of from Vermont, of course, Michigan, and Illinois. There's the apple on the table, reflecting her time as an educator. There are the books that are here in the State House. But in all of this, I really was reflecting on her legacy, not just the little symbols that I can incorporate. I wanted this to be an act of honor, one that celebrates her work, affirms her rightful place here on these walls, and ensures that her story is held, preserved, and carried forward. And that is my offering. I hope you like it. I certainly did my best. Thank you.
I think we need to hear from the Speaker of the House, Jill Krowinski.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. It's so wonderful to join you here for this momentous occasion honoring former Representative Lavinia Dorsey Bright, and it's so wonderful to see her family here in this chamber where she worked for so many years. Representative Bright didn't just make history as Vermont's first woman of color to serve in our legislature. She was a trailblazer who gave women the confidence to pursue their passions, to pursue justice, and to lead the fight for lasting and impactful change. Her focus was on creating policies for a better Vermont that everyone could thrive in. Her campaign on education, inclusion, and access shone brightly through her tireless work in stewarding the passage of Vermont's very first Parental and Paid Family Leave Act. Paid family medical leave has been an issue so very close to my heart, and it would have been such an honor to work side by side with her to pass a statewide policy that all Vermonters could access. Representative Bright was eloquent, resilient woman whose legacy continues to inspire women and girls to be leaders and to make change they want to see in their communities. Having this portrait in the State House is so important for young women, especially women of color, to see when they come to our state capitol. Representative Bright's portrait will serve as a true reminder that individual action leads to collective reform as long as we have the kind of bravery and tenacity that she brought with her when she sat in seat 27, right there next to Representative Pezzo in that seat, and her work in her committee. Thank you to the Bright family, the Lavinia Bright Portrait Committee, the Friends of the State House, our state curator, David Sheets, for overseeing this important portrait to ensure that everyone who walks through these halls are reminded that they belong here and they too can make a difference in shaping the future of our state. Thank you very much.
There is one member of this body, the House of Representatives, who dates back to Lavinia Bright's time. She, of course, is elevated to be the Dean of the House, our beloved, an institution unto herself, Alice Emmons, Representative.
Thank you, David. I'm beginning to feel like an institution. This place holds, is very dear to my heart. And coming here today and being asked to speak about Lavinia really touches me. I knew Lavinia. I sat and still sit in 61, and I remember her sitting at her seat. And she was always dignified, always put together, very, very conscious of her appearance, and I always respected that. Lavinia was part of our dinner group, and to hear her daughter say that she was very careful and who were her friends, and I feel really honored to have been accepted and for our dinner group to be accepted. Lavinia went out to dinner with us every evening, and she was just a quiet presence. We just knew she was there. And there were some things that came into my mind when I think of her. And she was silent, but she had a very forceful voice. She was unassuming, but very determined. And she was gentle, but very strong. And we knew what was important in her life. It was giving back to the state that they moved to take as their home, and her family. When the portrait was unveiled, it brought back to me so many memories of her. And the portrait does capture her perfectly. And what I remember the most, and the portrait does pick this up, is not only her grace and her elegance, but her beautiful smile that lit up her face. And I hold that very dear. Thank you.
We're momentarily going to switch over to the other body, the Senate. And this next speaker is the person who was first to suggest the portrait. She is a spark plug. I think everyone in the State House has to acknowledge that without Keisha Ram Hinsdale, some things just wouldn't get done. And she did begin the process of getting a group of people to take responsibility for getting this done. We're very grateful. Keisha.
On this box. Before I go to my written remarks, there's a few things I want to say. One, we're joined by our Secretary of State, Sarah Copeland-Hansis, who served in this body and is blazing trails continually. And, I just want people to know, even those who couldn't be here today, are going to walk by this portrait every day and pause. And we're all very excited because we also work here. And it matters a lot for us to be able to see a portrait like Lavinia Dorsey Bright's portrait in the State House. I wanted to note also that I spoke at the Alexander Twilight portrait unveiling, and we were kind of Vanna White with the Alexander Twilight portrait behind us. There's something that is has moved me to tears already as I've been sitting there thinking about getting up here, which is being physically behind Lavinia Dorsey Bright in this moment. I mentioned this in my speech, but I'm only the second woman of color to ever serve in the Vermont State House. And it was like a throwaway comment in some article. The first Black woman and woman of color to serve in the legislature was Lavinia Dorsey Bright, who now lives in Illinois. And I was probably a year into my service, and it was like I received a glass of water in the desert. I had never heard her name. And I immediately set out to find anyone related to her. And it was through the Boys and Girls Club that I met Bill. And I feel like we both looked at each other in the State House, and it was like, we're supposed to know each other. And I need to know everything about your mom. And then getting to know Becca and always hearing, well, we'll have to run that by Dad. Just feeling like a part of the constellation of this family was special. And I know that, others are going to speak to that more intimately than I can, but you don't know how much it means to me to peripherally be a part of this, and a part of this moment, and a part of your family. Because I feel like I've spent the last 20 years saying, I'm right behind you, Lavinia. Don't give up hope. We're coming. We're going to be here in greater numbers. I want to thank the Bright family, the profoundly talented portraitist, Ayanna Ross. I think we all were hoping the glasses would be in the portrait, and they are. I did not know Lavinia personally, but I feel like you captured her hands, her essence, the way she stood, in a way that brings such a deep elegance to the portraits of the State House. Maybe one that's only shared by Governor Madeline Kunin at this point, let's say. Thank you all for being here for this extraordinary and long overdue moment. Today we gather not just to unveil a portrait, but to restore a piece of Vermont's story, to make visible a leader whose courage and service helped shape this institution even when it was not built to fully reflect her. Representative Dorsey Bright broke barriers as the first Black woman and the first woman of color to serve in the Vermont Legislature. Nearly 150 years after the first Black man, Alexander Twilight, was elected to serve. She opened a door that for far, far too long had remained closed. And yet, when we look around this building, we see how incomplete that story has been, especially if we do not honor its beginnings. There are 87 portraits in the State House. Just 3 are of women. Only 1 is of a Black man. And until today, not a single portrait of a woman of color. As only the second woman of color ever elected to serve in the legislature, I feel that absence. And I feel the significance of this moment, because representation shapes who feels they belong here. There's a box of Kleenex, honestly, under this desk. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is especially poignant that we gather at a time when we are being called to reaffirm a basic truth. Equal protection under the law, the cornerstone of our democracy, requires that we also strive for equal representation within it. A democracy is only as strong as the voices it includes and the fairness of who has a seat at the table. Representative Bright's presence here was not inevitable. It was made possible by people who believed this democracy should include all of us. The question now is whether we will carry that belief forward. In this building, hundreds of pictures are taken each year under the portrait of Madeline Kunin, moments of pride, of leadership, of connection. And now, hundreds more pictures, meaningful moments, quiet reflections, and restorations of strength will take place at the feet of Representative Dorsey Bright. And I want to pause here for a small story, because I don't know if anybody else was going to mention this. I thought our dear portraitist might. But one of my favorite moments of many in working on this portrait was Bill texted or called and said, I have a Hail Mary project for you. Ayanna's saying something about there's some bill called number 260, and it's the Paid Family Leave Act that was codifying the federal Paid Family Leave Act of 1991. Can you find it? I believe that was all the information that I had. So I had Bill and the state archivist's office on the phone, and I ran over to our House clerk, Betsy Ann Rask, And I said, this is all the information I have. And within just 5 to 10 minutes, we had all of the documents in that series of bills. As people who work here know, we have a lot of documents involved. They used to have the writing on the back of every motion that was taken, and that was literally, if you put the bill in your pocket and walked away, that law couldn't pass. So when you have those living documents in your hand, it's incredible. And people should note when they walk up to the portrait that that's what is in Louvenia Dorsey Bright's hand, is the bill that she worked on to codify the Paid Family Leave Act. And you need to know that, Laura, because people are gonna be like, what's in there? And some people won't know, and they'll say, I don't know, it's just the language it looks like stamped how we do it. But that is the bill that passed through the House and the Senate that she was an original sponsor of. This morning, I did a quick search of Louvenia Dorsey Bright to remind myself of the outfits, the glorious outfits. Although my daughter ended up exclaiming, "Mommy, are you getting married today?" So I didn't quite capture the understated elegance. I did try hard to look polished and professional. But as I was looking at pictures of Louvenia Dorsey Bright, something else caught my eye. The meaning of Louvenia is bright or full of light. And this portrait is just that. It is like sunlight pouring into this building for some of us who have never seen ourselves reflected on these walls and are just beginning to see ourselves present in the halls of power. 3 generations of women in my family are here. My daughter is running around somewhere. She knows how many steps are in each staircase in this building. She is 3 years old, and she will grow up feeling welcome in this building underneath the light shining from Louvenia Dorsey Bright's portrait. It will hang in the West Corridor. People will pass it every day. Some will stop. And for those who do, for those who see themselves in Representative Dorsey Bright's strength and grace, it will mean something real, something tangible that cannot be forgotten or erased. May we all remember that a story is never complete. Today, we illuminate an important chapter before we lose track of it. And hopefully, Louvenia, you feel the love and warmth you gave to Vermont reflected back, finally, at long last. Thank you.
Another senator who made this happen big time is a very close friend and longtime neighbor to the Bright family, Senator Martine LaRocque-Gulick.
Thank you, David, for getting my name right. That was excellent. It's a struggle. I wrote my comments down because I knew this would be an emotional moment for me, as it is for so many others, and also because I was told to keep it at 2 minutes. So here goes. Louvenia Bright was one of the most interesting and self-determined women I knew in my small circle growing up in South Burlington. Her calm nature and her quiet elegance were qualities I admired and were different from the loud, feisty women of our large French-Canadian family. My memories of Louvenia are of someone who had a tremendous amount of grace and style. She was gentle and kind, always ready with a laugh or a smile. She was our neighbor. She was my parents' friend, mom to Bill and Becca, and she was one half of the Dr. and Mrs. Bright duo. I was so thrilled to learn that she would be honored with a portrait here in the State House, which seems so fitting for someone who forged the way for others and who went where others had not been before. In that way, she was groundbreaking and maybe even a little disruptive, and I mean that in the best sense of the word. Even in 2026, there are times when many of us feel a little out of place here. For all of its incredible architectural beauty, you can feel the weight of history. in a building that was constructed at a time when women and people of color couldn't even vote. There are spaces here that remind us of that. The imposing portraits all reflect back to us a time when leaders were older white men, most likely from the same class. These governors may have done great work, but they certainly didn't represent all people. For a person of color, a woman, a differently abled person, or anyone who doesn't fit the mold, there was and still is a lack of representation. There are many ways to be disruptive and even a little subversive. Some people raise their voices and they march and they organize and they demand change, and that work is essential. But others choose a quieter path. They show up where they are not expected. They claim space simply by being present. Lavinia chose that quiet disruption by running for office and winning. She became the first Black woman to serve in the Vermont House of Representatives. She claimed her place in a building that was never designed with her in mind, and she made it hers. I can only imagine the strength and the determination and the courage that it must have taken to step into that role and to represent our community, to be the first. And what a gift that was, not just for South Burlington, but for all of Vermont and for all the generations that will follow. So today I say, Lavinia, thank you for paving the way, for your gracious courage, for your quiet strength, and for the simple, powerful act of saying, this is my space too. Thank you.
Another member of the committee that made this happen, Representative Sadia Lamont.
Whew. Big shoes to fill. Good afternoon. And I wanted to say thank you. I want to start by saying thank you to, hold on. There we go. I want to see who I'm talking to. Thank you to members of the Bright family for being here. I'll come back to this again, my gratitude. But thank you, honored guests, and all who have gathered here. Today is a very special day. Not just because it's Cinco de Mayo, not just because it's the day I became a mom and it's my son's 22nd birthday, but because right now, in this moment, there is no place more important to me that I would rather be than here in this chamber making history. Creating visibility, honoring a legacy of a woman whose presence in this building changed the opportunities and possibilities. Lavinia Dorsey Bright, educator, advocate, mother, trailblazer, and the first Black woman to serve in the Vermont Legislature. This is so much more than a portrait. This is so much more than a portrait unveiling. I've seen some of Ayana's other work, and so I want to celebrate and appreciate this mastery. And we are saying here, clearly and without hesitation, she was here, she mattered, and others can be too. She did not begin as a politician. In fact, her son has said she was first and foremost an activist. Someone who saw what needed to be changed and chose to act. And even though I didn't know about her when I ran. I can relate to that. She served in a time when there was only one other Black legislator in this body. She stepped into a space that was not built with her in mind. She carried both hope, the hope of her supporters, and the weight of those waiting for her to fail. And still she served, led, made change. But beyond any single policy, her greatest impact may have been she was a pioneer. She expanded the imagination of who belongs here. And that humility, the quiet strength, that intentionality is why I am honored to be here today. Because paving the way does not always look like recognition. Sometimes it looks like perseverance. Sometimes it looks like carrying burdens others will never see. Especially when those burdens are increased or tied to identities. But the reality, when I walked through these halls, I didn't see people who looked like me. These walls have eyes and ears with a pressure that sometimes feels like I didn't belong here. Although there have been many other women of color elected, I stand here today as the third Black woman to serve in the Vermont Legislature. To be honest, I did not grow up seeing myself here. I never thought this was possible, seeing people who look like me in these seats, making decisions, shaping the state. It wasn't until 2020 when I began attending and trainings and I saw Black women in leadership that shifted something in me. I remember thinking, oh, there's more to this thing called life. I don't have to just exist and accept the systems. I can help shape them. And then in 2023, I had the honor of learning more deeply about Rep. Bright's life when I helped present her with the Cunin Achievement Award from Emerge Vermont. That was the first time I truly looked her up. We need to focus more on teaching. The first time I fully understood the fullness of her story, the first time I met her children. And I cannot fully express without, I'm trying not to cry. I cannot truly express how much that moment meant to me. Because suddenly, this building felt different. This role felt different. My path felt different. I felt possible in a new way, accessible in a new way, rooted in something deeper than just my own journey. That is the power of legacy. That is the power of representation. That is the power of telling the truth about who came before us. And today, standing here, I am no longer alone in this body. I serve alongside Representative Emily Karras Duncan, who is the fourth Black woman to serve in the legislature, as well as other women of color. And let me tell you, there is something deeply meaningful about not being the only. Because representation is not just about numbers, it's about belonging, it's about voice, it is about the quiet but profound understanding that you are not carrying history alone. And we are here today in part, primarily, because of the work of Senator Kesha Hinsdale, who has been committed for years to uncovering and honoring and lifting up the stories of people of color who have served in this legislature, stories that were too often overlooked, undertold, or forgotten. That work matters, because history that is not told is history that can be erased. And history that is erased cannot guide us forward. So today we correct that, we reclaim that, we honor that. Louvenia Bright's life reminds us that civic engagement is not reserved for a select few. It is not something we are born into, it is something we grow into. It is something we learn, we step into. Sometimes it is something we have to fight to believe we belong in. She believed. She stepped forward. She made space. And because she did, Kaya Morris could serve. I could serve. Rep. Karis Duncan could serve. And there are more to come. That is the continuation of her legacy. So when people walk through these halls and they see her portrait, I hope they don't just see history. I hope they see possibility. Sorry, I tried, I couldn't make it. So close, almost there. Whew. Sorry, it was long. I couldn't hold back. I tried to keep it under 2 minutes, but it just wasn't possible to do that. You can't do this. This is history, people. Whew. I hope they see possibility. I hope young people of color, someone who has never seen themselves, looks up and thinks, maybe me too. Because that is what Louvenia Bright gave us. Not just policy, not just service, but possibility. And that legacy will outlive us all. To the Bright family, I said I would circle back. Thank you for not just sharing her with Vermont, but for welcoming me with open arms and embracing me and making me feel like part of your family and always including me. Sincere, sincere gratitude. And to the Friends of Vermont and everyone that made this possible and all of the donors, a sincere, sincere gratitude. Thank you for being here with us to honor her service. May this portrait stand not just as a reflection of who she was, but as a beacon for all future members and visitors who will come. And we carry her legacy forward. The time is right for Bright.
We're going to wrap things up with Senator Joe Major.
So before I talk about Representative Bright, I do want to have a little bit of an acknowledgement. And earlier in this event, I saw Senator Randy Brock standing in the doorway. I am the fourth African American to serve in the Senate. He is the third. The Vermont Charter was established in 1791. Think about that. 1791. I am so deeply honored to be here for the unveiling of this portrait. As I was researching Representative Bright and her legacy, one word just kept going through my mind. And actually, the speaker said the word, trailblazer. Trailblazer in the form of a woman of color and a legislator. Like Shirley Chisholm, like Barbara Jordan, like Carol Moseley Braun. And I will tell you this, it was hard. It was hard in the 70s, 80s, and 90s to advocate for gender and racial equality. It was hard for her to raise her hand and say, I'm going to be the first woman of color to support my community in the state legislature. It was not easy for her to shepherd the passing of the Family Leave Act. But I will tell you what she did. She showed us that ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. I will also tell you something else. What she did not know is how strong her shoulders were. Because today, Emily Karis Duncan stands on her shoulders. Today, Sadia Lamont stands on her shoulders. Today, Keisha Ram Hinsdale stands on her shoulders. Today, Joe Major stands on her shoulders. So what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes and do what happens constantly in our hallowed halls. Imagine a little boy or a little girl of color walking and seeing the portraits of the great men that built this state. And they come upon this portrait and they point and they say, wow, that person looks like me. I can be great. I can be a trailblazer. Thank you.
We have a magnificent reception in the Cedar Creek Room. We have Ben & Jerry's 4 different flavors available in the card room. But to wrap things truly up, because of the Friends of the Vermont State House, our private nonprofit that's restored the State House with my office, that has been our partner in every endeavor, they worked very hard. I want their co-chair, Thaddeus Gibson, to come up and send us off. I also want to thank Gail Kerrigan, the administrator of the organization, who has been a countless, there are so many tasks she did in making this day happen. But first, Thaddeus.
I'll be very brief. I just want to echo some thank yous. First, I want to say that it's been a tremendous honor and privilege to be included in this process. Get that screen brightness up. Okay, great. Yeah, just thanks to all the speakers. Really, I'm feeling deeply inspired. Thank you to the Portrait Committee. And also, David, thank you to you and everyone in your office, Holly, Jack, Adam, so appreciated. Mary for the promo. everyone else on the Friends Board, Tina, my co-chair, Gail, as David said, so instrumental in all of our work and particularly in a lot of the nuts and bolts on the fundraising on this process. Agatha, you and your office, thank you so much for everything you do to stir this building. And then just like to echo Saudia's words about the Brights and thanking them. It's been really inspirational to see how you've honored your mother. And, I think just as your mother was and her portrait will be an inspiration to so many, let this act from you to be an inspiration to all of us to honor our ancestors and think about what we can all do to make this building a place where everyone feels welcome. Thank you so much. And one more thank you to the cafeteria and Ben & Jerry's. Let's enjoy what they have to offer.
So Adam and Jack, come forward. What we're going to do is we're going to move the portrait. We're going to roll it right through the front doors. It's going to be on display out in the outer lobby so that you can continue to look at it. Yeah. So please, if you would exit through those doors, we will begin to roll the painting. Enjoy the Cedar Creek room and the card room. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Jason. That was
Oh
awesome.
my God.
Well done.
You.
Jill, so I had a
Forgive me.
I know. See you later. These aren't bad. Talking to somebody. Yes, and she wanted to go down. She wanted to meet the artist. I'm not sure if she ever accomplished that. When we saw her, she was talking about the issues. I got completely hosed on the way here. It was like I was on the evening news with a hurricane in Florida or something, walking in front of the State House. The rain is going sideways in the wind. I my hand on my hood. I was parked in front of the rec center. So I was walking. It was like being in a shower. Oh yeah. My hands completely wet, like they've been in a flood, and my purse is still damp. Hi. Samosas. Little samosas, I think, right? Oh, wow. It's the pickleball house. So did you meet her?
Yes. Yes, it was very nice. Yeah. Good. We talked and it was good.
Yeah, the family was saying that it captured her exactly as they wanted. Where will it? It's going to be downstairs outside the Lieutenant Governor's office. So in the hallway. So is there a blank space there? I mean, how do they stick the portraits in? It's not like I saw my David's office. There was some other big portraits there, so I guess they music portraits.
Well, I was trying to take down some of the beers.
A fewer epilepsy.
So I was just talking with Sarah and she was saying that she was in the governor's office with, I think this is the story, with the girl who's the kids governor.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's a kids governor elected.
I didn't
they elected.
Didn't that just happen?
Yeah, I think it was right.
Three jokes and not one. Not a good one.
I'm a friend of the family. Are you really? Kids. He was a basketball guy. Oh, really? He was quite good. Bill Jr. Bill Jr. Yeah. Big star. I'd like to. Hi, John. He was ladies' chief. Second chief of staff after Bruce. And my wife's tennis court. Right here in North Vermont. Oh, president of Marlboro.
I don't want to take credit for a lot of things, but it is. Yeah, I'm sure we do. But we're definitely in the same class. Nice to meet you.
That was nice to meet you too. We've got some beautiful girls. You're a beautiful lady. Good to see you. Good to see you. Knocking him over. How's everyone? Are you in college? And you're in college. Okay. Apply for me.
Am I supposed to give this back to you?
I thought he was going to ask me.
I know. I'm going to give it back to you for the moment. I'm not sure it's safe to be walking around with a hot mic. So where are you guys from? Okay. And what's the organization? Oh, ALB Media. That's okay.
The Association of Africans Living in Vermont.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
It's like the details.
I'll let you guys do your thing, but if you need me or my sister again, just come tap us on. I did it again.
Yeah. March is not there. Jacket and everybody else. Yeah, well, I like it. But it's still like still the locality. It's so great. I love it. Yeah, everything about it. Where do you guys stay? Tonight we're just staying across the street. Yes.
And then you've got to take a deep breath.
So what was it? Very proud of it. Not every young white body goes there.
And I was like, how about Denver? Like, and then we went to look at it. Seriously.
I don't know yet about that either.
Depends on when it is.
On one side, we have cookies, brownies.
Well, we're going out to dinner on
Yes, that's it.
If we're going out to dinner, I don't let you go be the person you are.
Let me take you over for some ice cream. I'll tell you what. I don't mind. I don't mind. What am I getting? Cherry Garcia. Got it.
That's great. After about the first minute, can we feed you? You're feeding me. No. No.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You should have told me. I got my second meds for birds.
I wanted something, something
Mario. Very nice. Yep. And well timed. You got credit. Sometimes we're slow, but we get there. I've also got to do work on Alexander Twilight's house.
Really? That's very cool.
Yeah, I've done a ton of historic restoration work at the Old Stone House Museum, where he ran the school. Yeah.
Go get some ice cream.
I'm going to head north. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Pardon me, sorry.
Everybody's got what they need. And I have a team.
You're trying to fix that. Well, they're good for me.
When the Arts Council
I got to see it up close now.
That's where I am.
She's a powerful I left out after my meeting. Yeah, I heard Joe. No, I didn't go to KC. I literally walked in and I saw Ian and the neighborhood doing some work. And I said, did you go to KC? He's like, I went for like 5 minutes. He's like, there's nothing worth talking about. I'm like, okay, then I'm definitely not going. I was like, I don't feel bad.
No, that's what I felt. That's pretty much
This was much. And I was going to say this. Yeah. Well, I was saying it's also the kind of thing.
That's right, that's right.
Around the legislature, I had it in there. I didn't say it, but we didn't decide.
When you saw
Oh, those cookies look good. well, I'm about to go over to Tim German's house for dinner. He invited me. I was like, oh. I was like, well, when you're like something healthy that could be better than whatever.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. All right. Now we're gonna get out. I think we're gonna go around this way. Are you leaving or staying? I'm going. Oh, I think the only way I can go is that way. I'm gonna go around the table and out the door so I don't disrupt this conversation. The other elevator at the far end is open. Yeah, by the close by all.
Guys in there.
Now you've got me intrigued.
I don't know. Maybe a better strategy.
Like, oh, I don't know.
Have you had ice cream yet?
That was great.
You need to have a, come get a cookie and go.
I worked in D.C. for 30 years with politicians, elected, and blah, blah, blah. I know what could happen. Because most are like, okay, you're giving me 2 to 3 minutes. It's definitely before this. There you go. I didn't. For this
She's doing it out.
That's awesome. It's the kids.
But they're also like, you would say, oh yeah, but then they also
you were like, I am going to get
That's crazy. My daughter goes film. And you know
It's not disruptive. It is going to happen.
Yes, I did. Another pair.
except for the environmental sector. But then when you go to before you walk away, can I get a photo?
Oh, snap. And we have something for you. We have something for you.
If you stand probably there, so I can get the gold behind. Yeah, that actually works.
Oh, I'm sure. Are you an amazing woman? I know you, but I might fall over. That's right.
I got a few for you.
Thank you so much. You I won't keep you. Hey, your speech was wonderful, by the way. I think everybody got a little.
We have them in people that gives help.
No, I don't know where they are.
They're over here.
Oh, they're over here.
You know what? I think that's what
so I can hear all the stories.
Yeah. And,
she gets some ice cream.
Okay. Oh, he's got copies of your speech.
I don't know if you can copy her speech, but
And she got to see the speech. I know. That was a big one.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
No, I live in the Hampshire, but I grew up in South Burlington. I'm like, oh, I tell you. So Edie was my neighbor.
We will.
Which color?
Riveted for an hour and 50 minutes in the House chamber, listening to you, your family, hearing about your wife. And I'm just...
He's not even a Vermont.
Pardon me?
He's not even a Vermont.
Where is your home now?
Fairfax.
Fairfax. Are you retired in Fairfax?
Very retired.
Well,
Doesn't mean he's not a good person. He's still
of course it is.
This is Linda Morrell.
Linda Jedlowski, nice to meet you.
You too.
And Saudi Lamont's a friend. She represents a sliver of Stowe, and I am sort of part of an area here as well.
I think he's in here. All I remember was it was brown. Yeah. It was very 70s. Yes. I'm in the house. I hope I see you next year, maybe. How are you? The only one I only ever been to one, and it was the one in that bar in Burlington. Actually, no, we had there was one at the hotel. Yeah. More people than I needed. All right, it was good to see you. Yes, good to see you. I'm not tired. I'm still home. We just don't get there. Yeah, I know. We had this outside. It was at 9:15, and that's not right. It's on repeat. Yeah. Do you go? Do you still attend stuff? Yeah. Sounds like healing. Yeah, still. Yeah. Oh, you did. I saw that, but it was after the fact. Yeah. No. I would love to see it. Doesn't she have an accent going on though now? A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. They seem a little altered. Yes. I know. I know. Or whenever bye. See you later. I know. Yeah. Before. Yeah. July 16th is good. Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm kind of new. I have no idea. Do you know you can hide pictures? Mine are too, but mine are all like filled with like people with wheelchairs and I went with pictures. So I had to learn how to hide those. Is this your more recent? That was the last one. They were already living out of state. Nice meeting you. That looks even better than what it like cookies. I do whatever you have. Oh, really? I stopped at, yeah, what's that? They're gonna put it
There's gotta be, there are so many. I've got to get another cookie.
Beautifully done.
Representative Wood. Here you go.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
There we go.
Wait, but that wasn't the whole thing.
Here, I'm gonna
Nice.
I think they're so soft.
They're crumbling.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. I got it.
Good.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's your time to schlep. It's my time to schlep, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Oops, sorry. No, I don't know what I was supposed to do.
Now, I will hasten to add that the hook that is in the wall is a huge one. And we have no idea how it's going to match up with the wire. So while it will be here, it may be a little on the high side. My design.
We'll readjust, and we're going to put the picture light on.
Sure.
Not right now.
Right. So, and it'll have a picture light just like this. But we'll do that tomorrow probably because we're going to have to adjust.
You want to wait for your sister to come down?
Oh, yeah.
Take a picture. I'm just going to take a quick picture and then I'm scooting by. I'm leaving. So I'm just going to do this, and then this, and then
Yeah, let me see where the wire is. Okay.
where it's going to hung.
We intend to fiddle around with it. Adam's going to fiddle around with it tomorrow.
We have a light to put on it.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. I'm anticipating it being too high, but.
Yes.
But if
Yeah.
I look like one.
Cool.
But it's too many wraps to loosen right now.
With all the cameras.
Plus,
It's easier to.
probably, you know what they do at this end after you unwrap?
Yes.
And you discover that.
Yep.
This guy, I'm looking for him.
Ready? Yep, ready.
Okay, so it's probably gonna be too high because we haven't had a chance to. Right.
It is just fine.
We are.
I told you many weeks ago, picture on the wall is my goal. You can move it up and down all you want now, but I know it's on a wall.
Exactly.
Honestly, I don't feel like you need to move it around.
No, but
Looking at-
there,
oh, the
it's in
chandelier.
the chandelier.
This is the final touch.
So-
State curator.
So ideally, we're gonna get
Oh,
it to
middle.
the
Okay.
center
Okay.
of this painting.
Okay.
So the center line will come down that much more.
Okay.
So it'll be exactly in the same, and she'll have a picture light just
That
like
was my next question.
this one.
Okay.
So that'll make a difference, but at least we can show you the spot.
This is great.
And she fills it,
Perfectly.
Ayana.
I'm here.
Where are you? Oh, okay. Very nicely.
That's good.
In fact, we've all been struck by, and I think we said this when we were together yesterday, but the way the frame kind of echoes your patterned wall behind, all of that. Really beautiful, and anyway.
The lines and the
Yeah, this
light
is,
fixture.
Meant to be right here.
it's a chance to see it. Yeah. It's gonna be very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Huge moment. Yeah. Did you say?
This is a thank you from us to you for all of your work. We appreciate it.
You say, you realize that we're lifelong friends.
I know that for sure. I know that for sure.
There's a bit of trauma behind it.
We're into a bit of trauma bond.
I mean,
Is that a threat?
I mean, right, where we go from here, who knows?
Who knows?
But,
I'll have to tell you, I was getting lunch from my family at Al's French Fries. And talking to somebody about, you said portrait, Montpelier, and someone in line was like, what are you doing? Where are you going?
And he's like, oh, I know David. Someone who goes to church with you was in line with me, and we had this long conversation at Al's. One of your friends.
You've been outed.
It's a small state,
That
as you well know.
That it is.
Yes.
As you guys well know.
That it is.
No, I think the other thing we've been so impressed with is just the relentless determination to get this done. And it was relentless to the extent that I have to say I was surprised at your fundraising success.
Yes.
That the fundraising success.
That's the one thing we'll say, he didn't expect that. we did have that conversation. He didn't expect this. We didn't expect this to
It went so fast, it went so successfully, so quickly.
And we had kind of gone from, so how do we do this, to, oh yeah, we got the money.
Yeah.
Fairly quickly.
Update me along the way.
Oh my God.
It wasn't that long. He's like, they've got this much money. I said, wait, say that?
Because once we kind of got what, okay, we need to do, got it. We need to get this person, that person, what's the plan?
Right. But I mean, the two of you, in terms of fundraising efforts, have you done much of that?
No, maybe we should take this on the road.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
We might have some other projects.
Well, that was what I was working toward, Bill. It's just to that, the Friends of the State House, are supposed to be about raising money. And they're not quite as successful as you guys.
You said that all the time.
Ooh.
They just want to hang in.
Anyway, we'll stay in touch. How often do you ever come back? Like, what was the longest you've been gone from Vermont?
Probably around COVID.
Yes, Steve
Okay.
was
Part of that was I got sick and I couldn't do anything. And part of it was obviously COVID shutdowns. But generally speaking, on average, sometimes it's even basketball, all the events that
Out of there.
Thank you.
Yes. We do. We do. Thank you. You were, where's Susan now? No. Yeah, I didn't know. It's funny. As your old lunch bar. It was always so pretty. Yeah, and always so bubbly and happy.